All right, men, welcome to today's episode of Strong Men, Strong Marriages. When you feel like giving up on your marriage. There can come a point where you just feel like, man, I don't know if this is worth it anymore. Or maybe I should just file for a divorce, or maybe I should just stop trying. If she wants to have a divorce, that's fine, right? If you're involved in an affair, maybe this affair person's a better choice. And it can just sometimes you can just feel down, right? We just had Christmas, so if things were hard at Christmas, right, that could be another thing that's kind of pointing you towards, okay, well, maybe it's not really worth it anymore. So today we're going to talk about kind of what to do with those thoughts and feelings, and a good approach that you can take. So my name is Mike Frazier, MD. I help high achieving Christian men have more intimate marriages. So some weekly wins. So I just signed up for the course recently, and just having really good results. So he said, coming into the course, I was driving to be a better man. I feel like this course is really helping make that a reality. Most of all, the course is helping me consistently be better every day. So this is the thing a lot of guys complain about, right? Is they'll make some improvements for a while, but they just can't stick, right? So we have the program designed to where you do stick with your changes, right? Where you make improvement each day. He talks about how there have been some times this week where he felt lost and hopeless. And honestly, without this program, I feel like it would have been hard for me to pull myself out of that feeling. It seems like nearly every time I do start to feel lost, I go back to the course and there's an answer to my question. So cool. For the first time, I feel like I can manage my thoughts and emotions around my sexuality, right? A lot of guys that come into the program struggle with pornography. And so as part of it, we add in a course on pornography to help you overcome that, really in a much different way than maybe you've done it before, in a way that's just really effective. And he says things with my wife are definitely improving. She hasn't asked for any more space. I offered to give her more space, and she told me she didn't really need it. When your wife needs space, she needs space for a couple things. One is she needs space from the way you're behaving that's negative. That's number one, right? But she also needs some space to just kind of clear her own thoughts and like be by herself. And, so when you stop having such negative behavior, she needs less space, right? That's what happens. Guys are being there emotionally for their wife, right? So their wife's saying some things that maybe would have upset them in the past, right? But then instead of like getting upset back, they just kind of listen. They're able to be there for her, and then she calms down and she feels really connected to you because of it. Okay. Great family moments over Christmas with wife and kids, and just like enjoying that time. Guys are getting there, right? Having those great family memories. It's super cool to see. So calling attention to your wife's behaviors in a useful way. So sometimes your wife will do things that need to be addressed, right? She's not perfect. And actually, if you are able to point out some things that she can improve in a way that's strong and loving, both, it's actually a really good thing to do. And it feels good to you, and it just represents yourself and her. And so finding that balance is really great and creates, a better, stronger relationship. So seeing through wife's frustration to support her. So, guys are doing this in the program. This is one that I've been focusing on myself. A lot of times when your wife is seeming just like really critical or negative, she's probably just feeling overwhelmed with a lot of stuff, right? And so if you can see through that and just, hey, like, are you feeling overwhelmed? Is there something I can help you with? Usually that'll kind of break through and be really a positive thing for her, and guys are able to do that. So at our house this week, we had really great conversations with family, really nice Christmas together. I worked really hard on a gift for her that she really appreciated, and that was fun to see. So things are going good here too. So again, like, if you're in that spot where you're sort of like, man, yeah, Mike, I'm hearing those good wins, and that's great, and I'd love to get there, but like, listen, my marriage is tough right now, right? And so you might be saying, hey, like, just kind of complaining about it. Hey, man, this is too hard. Yeah, like, sure, Mike, your wife sounds great, but my wife isn't like that, or whatever. Now, keep in mind, I used to say that same thing all the time, right? Like, oh, my wife seems great, but she's really not. Like, I was very negative, even though my wife is amazing. And so, complaining that things are too hard a lot of times isn't very useful, but you're probably doing some of that right now. It's not that attractive and it doesn't feel very good, but it's common. Okay. A lot of times guys will feel like, hey, whatever I do, it doesn't even make a difference, right? I'm going to try these things. I feel like I'm changing, I'm listening to this podcast. And even early on in the program, some guys feel like this, that they are all this stuff is not making a difference, right? And so it can feel frustrating. Man, I feel like I'm making these changes. I feel different. I feel better, but my wife just doesn't seem to care. And so why try? Why should I keep trying, right? So a place you can go to is, man, like my life would just be so much easier if I would just marry somebody else, right? Somebody that wasn't so negative, somebody that was more caring, somebody that did have the same faith as me, right? So that can be an easy one for you to kind of get tricked into believing, right? So, oh, if I just married someone else, it'd be way easier, right? So you're kind of thinking that, you're kind of like imagining, fantasizing, oh yeah, I could marry, maybe you'd have somebody in mind. Oh, I could marry this person and she'd be amazing, right? Um, but then you think, okay, well, like, what about the kids? Like, I don't want to do that to the kids. I don't want to get divorced. What does that mean to my faith? And I'm a Christian guy. I don't believe in divorce. In our faith, we don't support that. Jesus teaches what God puts together, don't let man put asunder. So you kind of start feeling like, I just, I don't know, and so you start feeling kind of trapped. You're like, man, I want to go, but I feel like I can't, right? I can't go because of my faith. I can't go because of the kids. I can't go because the way my family would look at me, whatever, right? You kind of think, man, it would just be so much better if I could just leave, but I can't. Okay. And so you feel trapped, and it just is not a very happy way to live. So, I felt this way for a while in our marriage. Um, Thinking about that now, I feel really stupid, even saying that, but that it's true. I felt that way. I felt trapped. Um, yeah. I'm doing all this for my wife. She doesn't do anything back, just that kind of what I call the mosquito cycle, right? Doing nice things, expecting something back, getting frustrated when she doesn't, feeling like you can't leave because of your faith. It's hard, right? It's a tough way to live. Um, so we want to talk about how to get out of that, right? So one of the big things, and when I was struggling in our marriage, I went to our church leader, and he just helped me understand something. He helped me understand, hey, look, man, you can leave, right? You can get divorced. It is an option. And even just that for me was actually really freeing. Okay. Because when you feel trapped, you're like, I want to leave, but I can't. It just creates all this crazy anxiety and resentment and frustration. Okay. So instead, realizing, hey, like you could get divorced, right? Like nobody's going to stop you. You could go hire a lawyer today. I don't know if many are open. Well, probably by the time you're listening to this, they'll be open. So you could call a lawyer today, say, hey, I want to file for divorce, and they'd help you do it. Okay. Like every day, people do it. So there's about 2,046 divorces every single day in the United States. So like it is happening. So when you tell yourself, oh, I can't do it, it's not true. You can. Okay. You absolutely can. But you also need to understand there's some realities to that, because when you get into this like fantasy mode, oh, I could just marry someone else, it'd be wonderful, right? There's some pretty harsh realities to divorce. So there's a financial impact that's very significant. Okay. Losing half your assets doesn't feel very good financially. Okay. So also like attorney fees, splitting up properties, you're living in different places. So the emotional impact on you and your kids is really kind of the bigger deal, right? So you don't want to be away from your kids, right? That's the thing I hear most from the guys. Like, I don't want to be away from my kids. I want to spend that time with them. Um, so, understanding like, that, that happens, right? It's tough. Okay. And just the logistical impact, just day to day. Okay, how do we split up the kids? What's the living situation? How do we do holidays? It just becomes a logistical difficulty, right? So it's not like a fix all, right? Getting divorced, okay? But there is a significant cost financially, emotionally, logistically, all of that. So count the cost, right? Like Jesus says in the parables, if you're going to build a house, you need to count the cost first, okay? Or else you leave the house like halfway finished. So, count the cost of divorce, right? It's significant. Okay, so don't have this fantasy in your mind. Oh, if I just left everything, it would be fine, and I'll just marry this next great woman. Okay, so, but again, understand you can, right? You can. There's a cost to this, but you can. And you may decide, like, okay, like the cost is high, but, for me, it makes more sense to end this marriage. You can do that, right? The thing that happens here too is It's kind of like with pornography, right? If you're just like, oh, I can't watch, you just think about it all the time, right? And then you end up turning to pornography. Versus you're like, oh, I could look at pornography, but I don't really want to. It doesn't really take me where I want. It lowers the anxiety, and you have much less stress around it. So same thing with marriage, right? If you're like, look, I could leave, but what does that do? Like, what are the actual consequences of that? That lowers your anxiety, it lowers your resentment, and it lets you actually choose to stay if that's what you choose, right? Because if you can't leave the marriage, you can't really choose to stay in it. See what I mean? Like, if you don't give yourself that choice, you're not really choosing to stay married. You're just like locked in. Like, that ball and chain is an old term for a wife, a negative term. Um, so if you're looking at it that way, it's like horrible, right? But if you're saying, look, divorce has its issues, right? Marriage has its issues too, but I'm choosing to stay married. It's much different than saying I can't get divorced. I have to stay married. Okay. Again, attractive versus not. What's attractive or not is your feeling state, right? So if you're feeling trapped in your marriage, if you're feeling resentful, like you're extremely unattractive to your wife. So you're staying in it, but your wife really doesn't want much to do with you if that's your emotional state all the time. Okay. So really having a clear choice to stay, again, feels much better. It feels much more freeing, and it's more attractive to her. Okay. Here's the other thing. If you are starting to say, well, Mike, yeah, like, but listen, that cost would be worth it. It's really hard. You need to understand, like, it's not just her. Okay. So unless you realize what you did that was a problem, you 100% are going to repeat these same mistakes in your next relationship. No question. It's just what will happen. Okay. So 40% of first marriages about end in divorce. Okay. Second marriages, about 60%. Third marriages, about 73%. Okay. So here's the thing. Sometimes we have this fantasy like, oh, I just married the wrong person. I just have to marry the right person. You can see from these statistics, that's not it, right? It's not it that you kind of messed up the first time like, now I found the right person, right? What actually happens is that you attract people to you, and you get into relationships with people who are about your same level in certain areas. So the way I like to put it is in terms of strength. So, like, what level of spiritual strength are you at? Meaning, like, am I honest? Am I trustworthy? Am I connected with God? Do I have a good, strong sense of self-worth, or am I trying to borrow that from my wife? That's one of the big things that creates major issues in marriage. Um, with emotional strength, can I manage my emotions well? Or am I flying off the handle or shutting down? With mental strength, do I understand how my thoughts work, how they influence my decisions? Can I manage those well? Which is really kind of one of the big things we do in the program. You probably don't really have a lot of skills around that unless you've done something like therapy or coaching. So, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, am I financially and physically in good shape? Sexually, can I manage my sexuality well? Okay, so if I'm running through those and you're like, maybe I'm not so good in some of those, here's the thing: you're going to attract someone who is also low level in those things. Okay. And so your marriage is going to be a problem because you haven't leveled up in those areas. Okay. So you need strength in those areas. Plus, you need some skills. Okay. You need trust. You need to be able to trust yourself. You need to be good at following through on what you say you're going to do. Again, manage your emotions, manage your thoughts, connecting with God. All of that's involved, in my mind, in trust. Also, that you're not going to be unfaithful. You're not going to be looking at pornography. You're not going to be chasing other women. Right. Because even the fact that you're like, fantasizing about other women right now while you're still married means you're going to do the same thing in your next relationship, right? Even if you think your wife's great or whatever, you're going to attract somebody who has the same mindset as you. Okay. Sometimes we can marry up. We marry someone that's like a higher level than us, but then they kind of get tired of it, right? They don't really want to be with someone who's at a lower level long term. Okay. So that's the strength area. But then you also need to, again, we talked about trust, communication, right? So how good are you at expressing yourself? How well can you listen to your wife? How well can you get to win-win agreements? How well can you really express and listen at a deep level and create mental emotional intimacy? Okay. And then sexual intimacy, do you approach that in a way that is strong, that is attractive, that is flirtatious and fun? Okay. So if you're like, geez, Mike, I'm actually not very good at that stuff, then you're going to create the same problems in your next marriage. Okay. It's just what's going to happen, or your next relationship, right? You're going to attract someone who's also lower level. So again, the same patterns are going to repeat unless you do something. So it's not just her. Okay, trust me on this. It is not. You've attracted someone who is either at your same level or maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower. But like, for you to have a better relationship, you have to level up in all these areas. Okay, because that's who you'll attract. Right. So again, what makes you attractive? What's going to draw somebody to you is your strength, your spiritual strength. Am I connected with God? Do I have a good sense of self-worth? Self-confidence, self-esteem, is that all kind of in a good spot? Mentally, can I manage my thoughts well? Emotionally, can I manage my emotions well? Physically, am I a good physical and financial spot? Sexually, can I manage my sexuality well? Can I direct that in ways that are positive? Okay. So when you are strong in those areas, you feel great, and that's going to generate interest in you, right? From a woman towards a man, right? That's going to generate some sexual attraction and interest. Not just sexual, mentally, emotional, and sexual attraction. Okay. But even if you're strong in those areas, you also need to add some skills to the mix. Okay. So, if you are strong and trustworthy and solid and a good person, right? You're good with God, right? You're managing your thoughts well. All of that is great, right? Internally, you're good. But then you need to add on to that, relationship skills. Okay. So again, trustworthiness is part of that. That all comes with the strength part. Keeping your promises to your wife. But next is communication skills, which even if you are strong in those internal areas, doesn't mean you're especially good at communicating, right? At really listening to your wife well, at really expressing yourself well, at getting to agreements that work for both of you with stuff like money, sex, in-laws, parenting, religion, housework, time. Um, it's a different skill set, and so you to again, like, the strength will attract a woman to you, but it's these skills that will make your relationship work long term. Okay, so trust with there's communication, and then what that generates is mental and emotional intimacy, right? And then being able to add on to that, sexual intimacy. Can I approach my wife in a way that's fun and flirtatious and sexy and good, right? That's actually going to be a turn on for her instead of a turn off. Again, that's a skill that's going to build and create that good sexual connection between the two of you. Okay. So again, like, you can be strong, but you also need to have these relationship skills to make a marriage work long term. The other thing too is, like, even if you and your wife divorce, right, you're going to have a long-term relationship. If you have kids, you're going to be connected literally forever, because you have kids together. You're going to want to be at holidays, you're going to want to be at graduations and stuff like that. You guys have a connection, and so you need to learn how to have trust between the two of you. You need to be actually really good at communication, um, to create a good co-parenting situation. Okay. So trust and communication need to be there either way. The sexual connection won't be there, right? If you guys divorce, but you still need to understand each other. You need to get to the deeper fears and concerns. You need to be able to get to win-win agreements, right? All that needs to be there, whether you guys are married or not, if you have kids. Okay. So if you are feeling like giving up on your marriage, here are some steps to follow. Okay, 4 steps to follow. So, step 1 is, again, allow yourself the option to divorce, right? Say, look, I could choose that if I want to. It is an option. Okay. So that, again, kind of gets you out of that stuck, trapped mindset, and just gets you to, okay, yeah, like, I could tomorrow go file for divorce. I totally could. But then step 2 is count the cost. So you really understand that impact. Okay. So it's like, oh, shoot. Okay. So yeah, I could. And that sounds kind of great in my mind, that I'd just find some wonderful person and we go get married. But there's some pretty serious cost to this, right? Financially, emotionally, logistically, all of that. Okay. So you count the cost. But then you also need to understand, like, hey, um, even if I leave, right, I'm going to attract someone that's at my same level. And so, like, I need to build myself up. I need to build my strength, and I need to build my skill either way, especially if we have kids, because I'm going to have a relationship with this woman either way. And if I want a different, relationship with someone else, I need to level up in these areas. So I'll attract someone who's at a high level and we can have a great relationship. Okay. So what I recommend, again, so step one, allow yourself the option of divorce. Step two, count the cost so you really understand that. And then step three is give yourself a time frame to build up your spiritual, mental, emotional, and sexual strength, right? So building yourself up so you become that strong, attractive guy. And then also be building up these trust, communication, and intimacy skills. Okay. How am I at keeping my word? How am I at, a lot of that's internal stuff, but then communication piece, right? Can I really understand my wife well? Can I express myself well? Can I ask for what I want? Can I set boundaries, right? These interpersonal skills that you need to be really good at to create a great relationship with your wife, whether that is continue to stay married or whether that's a co-parenting relationship, and you need those skills. So I recommend a year, a year-long process. We got a new year coming up here. So just committing to yourself, hey, look, for this next year, right, I'm going to build myself up. I recommend staying in the marriage for that year, right? Because this is where you're going to be able to practice these skills, right? Practice them with your wife. And then look, at the end of that time frame, right? So once you feel you're strong, right? You have that mental, emotional, physical, sexual strength, right? You feel good and you're able to communicate really well. You feel like, hey, like I'm good. I can listen well to my wife. I can express myself well. We can get to mental emotional intimacy, right? Where we understand each other at a good level. Okay. Now, sexual intimacy may or may not come depending on what your wife is up for doing or even what you are up for doing, right? But, just building up that ability to, I can manage myself, right? Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually. I can communicate well with my wife, can express myself well. I can understand her. We can get to agreements that work. Okay. Then at that point, after you've done that for a year, you feel solid in those skills, then you can decide, right? Divorce or not. Okay. So that's what I recommend for the steps, right? So again, allow yourself the option, count the cost, and then give yourself a time frame. Like, okay, either way, like I need to build myself up either to attract someone new or to like really revive this and make this a great relationship. Okay. And then like commit to that time frame. Again, I recommend a year. And then at the end of that time frame, then make a decision, but not until you've built yourself up, built up your ability to create great communication. Because again, especially if you have kids, you need to have great communication. You need to have trust to co-parent well. Okay. So again, why this works, it relieves that trapped feeling. Okay. It lets you know you do have options and you're choosing to stay. Right? I'm choosing to stay for a year, work on myself, work on the relationship, meaning work on really understanding, expressing myself well, creating mental, emotional intimacy, hopefully sexual intimacy as well. Okay. It focuses on what you can control instead of what you can't. A lot of times that trapped feeling comes from, oh, I can't control it. It's like I'm forced to stay in my marriage or I can't because of the kids, right? That trapped feeling feels horrible and it's not attractive. It also is talking a lot about what you can't control or feeling like things are out of your control that really are not, right? It is within your control to file for a divorce, right? So remembering, oh, I can choose that, but I'm choosing not to. Okay. So again, you need to build a great relationship with your wife, either as a co-parent or as your wife, right? When in the future. So either way, if you've got kids, you want a great relationship with her and you need the skills to do it. Okay. So doing this, it prepares you for your next relationship, whether that's with your wife. Because the way I look at it really is guys that come through the program and really commit to it and do it, their old marriage really does die, right? That old marriage is gone. And you have created a brand new one that is built on these skills, that's built on your strength. And now it's got like that foundation of trust, communication, intimacy that's going to take you great places. Okay. So or, right, either it's going to go that way, or you're going to build these strengths and skills. You're going to have good communication with your wife, and she'll be your ex-wife, co-parent to your kids, and then eventually, build a great relationship with another woman in the future. That also has these strengths and skills, right? Because like it may be that you level up across all these areas, your wife chooses not to, and that's hard, right? 100%. And you may at that point choose, okay, yeah, I'm going to step out of this, and we'll co-parent and do what we can here, but romantically I'm going to be involved with somebody else. You could choose that, but then you're going to attract someone who's at your same level, so you've got to level up. You have to, if you want a great marriage. You don't have to. Yeah, we're talking about choice today. You could choose to not build any of these skills. You're just going to continue to suffer in your relationships. Okay. And so when you do build these strengths and skills, you're going to be a great example to your kids, no matter how things turn out. They're going to want to be around you. You're going to be the kind of guy that is, someone that sets the example, right? Our mission at Strong Men, Strong Marriages is to, be strong and loving leaders of our homes. Okay. Examples of real manhood to ourselves, our families, and the world. And, to really show what manhood is to the world, and for our Christian guys to prepare the world for the second coming of Jesus. So it starts with us being that strong and loving leader and building these communication skills. So, and relationship skills. So if that's you, if you want to level up, right? You want to be stronger across all these areas. Okay. You want to create a marriage that has trust, communication, and intimacy. Okay. Come join us at Strong Men, Strong Marriage, Strong Men, Strong Marriages. So visit strongmenstrongmarriages.com. There's also a link in the show notes. You'll fill out an application that will review on a call. There's also going to be options coming up in the near future here that you can just start the course, right? Either doing it yourself or getting some support from me, or the highest kind of level of involvement between the two of us, depending on what you want to do, how much coaching and accountability you want. So come check it out. Again, strongmenstrongmarriages.com. Build these skills, level yourself up, and create a great marriage and great relationship. All right, men, stay strong. We'll see you next episode.